With the world literally falling apart at the seams and the geopolitical world in a complete state of crisis, it's really not worth my time anymore to just jump on and do one video here and there and try to cover things as they happen. There's simply too much going on. So instead, what I'm going to start doing here is the Hooper Report. Not the most imaginative name, I know, but what I'm going to do is try to cover everything that's happening in one deep detailed video where we try to offer a holistic critique of the current global situation, because my God, does it need one. Things have not been any worse, I don't think, even in my lifetime. You look to the war on terror, Iraq, Afghanistan, everything that went on there. We're currently in a far more dangerous situation than we were just a few short years back in the war on terror. So be sure to follow, subscribe, like, and share this video on whatever platform you're watching this on. There's going to be a lot more to come. I'm probably going to put out 1 or 2 of these videos every week where we do a roundup of the global chaos of the last few days and try to offer some unique, independent, critical analysis that isn't coming at this stuff from the left or from the right and try to score points against the other side like this is some game. No, we are going to deal with reality, and the harsh reality that we currently live in, which is a world falling apart. So be sure to follow on whatever platform you're watching, and let's get started. And this episode, we are going to get started with Lebanon and Israel, which a lot of people have had some wildly uninformed commentary on Lebanon and Israel. For instance, the pager attack, particularly in the right-wing pro-Israel side of the media. There have been a whole lot of people out there really giving a whole lot of praise to Israel for this attack. This was such a technologically advanced thing to do. This was such a smart thing to do. This was such a targeted thing to do. Well, what if all of that was a complete lie? Because in my analysis, that attack using explosives in pages was not only completely reckless and had no real consideration for who might be caught up in the crossfire of that, which, as we shall see, were a hell of a lot of innocent people, but also it was such an incredibly short-sighted thing to do. If you have the capability to do something like that, an attack on that scale, why would you do it seemingly out of the blue when you are already in a crisis with Gaza? It was a complete strategic waste at best, and at worst, a strategic mishap, which is probably going to lead to the Middle East being in flames for decades more to come. The last thing that region really needed. So let's take a look at this and what exactly happened here. Pages used by hundreds of members of the militant group Hezbollah exploded near simultaneously in Lebanon and Syria on Tuesday, killing at least 9 people, including an 8-year-old girl, and wounding several thousand. So let's break this down. You've just conducted an attack in 2 separate countries which do not hold you in high regard whatsoever. You have injured thousands of people, you've killed children, and the injuries that you've given to these people that you've hit in this attack are some of the most horrific, ferocious kind of injuries that you can imagine. We're talking hands blown off, fingers blown off if you're lucky, eyesight annihilated, people losing limbs, legs, arms, devastating, life-changing injuries. Now let's imagine where some captured Israeli soldiers might find themselves, perhaps in a few short days, if the headlines we're going to get to are anything to go by. What do you think the people that have just been scarred and maimed and face life-altering injuries might then want to do to your soldiers when they get their hands on them. Nothing good. And there's example after example after example of this throughout history. The war in Vietnam, of course, has hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of brutality like this on both sides. When you conduct an attack like this, where you are maiming people, they are going to try to do that to you. Reciprocity is the only real rule of international relations. What you do to me, I will do to thee. So Israel has just opened a Pandora's box for its soldiers, should they be captured. And I'm predicting right here that if they are, they're going to be treated horrendously. And no, that's not a good thing. None of this is good. There is not anything that can come out of this entire situation that is positive. If you had this capability, you would have been best off waiting until you really had to use it or lose it. For example, you're in a situation where the existence of Israel is under threat. Then you might want to go ahead and pull the trigger on something like this. But to just do it like this, seemingly for political reasons, in other words, keeping Netanyahu in power indefinitely, because the only reason he is still in power is because his country is in a state of war. And God forbid we change the leadership in a state of war. That would be a threat to the existence of the nation, said every single tyrannical leader throughout human history. Let's return to this incident. Who else was hit in this? Iran's ambassador to Lebanon has been wounded in the explosion of pages across the country, Iranian news reports say. So now you've struck Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. 3 nations, 3 governments, 3 regimes, whatever you want to call it, that already despise you. You've just given them even more ammunition they can use to come after you in one way or another. Like I said, whether that be with captured Israeli soldiers, with indiscriminate attacks of their own. And this was an indiscriminate attack. Make no mistake. And they proved this the very next day. Lebanon is rocked again. Again being the key word. By exploding devices as Israel declares a new phase of war. And what happened here exactly? Walkie-talkies began to explode in Beirut and other parts of Lebanon, including at the funerals of some of the people that had died on day one. Wow. So this was not a, quote, targeted attack. This was an indiscriminate, reckless attack that injured hundreds of people, thousands of people. Many of them were innocent and in all sorts of different situations and places. Imagine you're driving your car down the highway next to another car, and over here, this guy's got one of these exploding pages. It blows up. Where's his car probably going to go? Maybe into yours, and you're dead. What if you're at home and you've put your pager on the side and your little kid runs up and picks up your little device, as little kids do, and is running around the house with it, and it blows up? They did not care. And why do they not care? Because they have the unmitigated support of the transnational military-industrial complex. Which, by the way, is now the title of my PhD, which is practically finished at last. Look for more news on that soon. So this was an indiscriminate attack. It maimed thousands of people, killed many, at least 20, including children. And they did it not once, but twice. And there are, again, just to also return to the point on the technological aspect of all of this, all of these people that were commenting saying this was such a smart move, this was the greatest attack of all time, this was the best way you could ever think to take out a terrorist group. What if this was some kind of attack on the batteries in these devices, which we now know it wasn't? But if it was, do you want to live in a world where a government can just blow up electronic devices at the press of a button? Is that the world that you want to live in? Because it shouldn't be. And in fact, even just removing that, because now we know that that's not what it was explosives. Do you want to live in a world where a government can infiltrate supply lines, pack devices with explosives, ship them out around the world, and then detonate them at will? Probably not. You don't want to live in that world. Some technological capabilities, some operational capabilities, which is really just what this was, they're better left unsaid, because they really can be a Pandora's box. Nuclear weapons technology is the best example of this, a complete Pandora's box. Look at the state of the world today. Look at all of the geopolitical fissures that we have in the world as a result of unleashing the technology of nuclear weapons. Can we do it? Yes. Should we use it? Why not? What could possibly go wrong? Look where you are today. North Korea, China, India, Pakistan, NATO. Unbelievable. The short-sightedness here is truly unbelievable. And where did this lead us to? Well, a few short days after the pager and walkie-talkie attacks, we get massive airstrikes from Israel across Lebanon. Most of them in the south, but not isolated in the south. All over the country, including in Beirut, where they kill a, quote, top Hezbollah commander. What has this done? Well, it's apparently laid the groundwork for a military incursion into Lebanon. So Israel is getting ready to invade Lebanon. Welcome to 2024. You think it couldn't get worse than it already was? Hate to break it to you, but here we are. And what has this created? I don't know if they have this in here. Let's see. Let's hit newer posts. Israel said it struck more than 2,000 targets in Lebanon over the past 3 days. Here is what I was looking to find. Israel has just single-handedly created the next refugee crisis. So all of you conservative commentators out there that are so obsessed with Israel and how great Israel is, and it's a true ally of Western democracies, and it's a beacon of hope in the Middle East, Israel has just begun the process of sending an even larger flood of refugees towards Western Europe. Because while this says here, these people are crossing into Syria without a specific plan, do you think they're going to want to stay in Syria? Do you think they're going to want to stay in the Middle East? A Syria which was, by the way, also hit in that pager and walkie-talkie attack? No, they're not. They are going to flood out of the Middle East, and they're going to flood into Western Europe. And when that happens, I don't want to hear a word of complaint from any of you about how the migrants are coming in and destroying culture and destroying jobs and destroying the economy and taking our houses. If you were supporting this, you are part of the problem. So congratulations. And if you didn't notice this before, you're allowing a disastrous history to just repeatedly play out again and again and again. So if you are waving the Israeli flag, jumping up and down and screaming from the rooftops about how fantastic this attack was, I hope you're still celebrating when the flood of refugees is knocking on your door. Let's move on. Another related topic here. Israel deliberately blocked humanitarian aid to Gaza. Two government bodies concluded. Two American government bodies, that is. Antony Blinken rejected them. He told Congress, quote, "We do not currently assess that the Israeli government is prohibiting or otherwise restricting aid, even though the US Agency for International Development and others had determined that Israel had broken the law." This is what happens when your government is completely bought and paid for and sold out to the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex runs the show. This collection of institutions has a political, military, and absolutely economic interest in the continuation of global violence, and it has the American government's head in a vice, and it continually squeezes and squeezes and squeezes and tries to get more political, economic, and military power out, usually successfully. But one day, things are going to go terribly wrong, and something's going to crack. Something's going to go bang, and it's probably going to be a very big thermonuclear bang. And who's going to have to deal with that? You and me. And by the way, it doesn't matter who you vote for. Let me pull this up quickly. Put out a tweet last night which got not a whole lot of views, but a decent response. Because Trump was talking about Iran and how big a threat Iran is. You know, the same Iran where he assassinated one of their national heroes while he was in office. Yeah, that Iran. Oh, gee, I wonder why they were angry. Man, I just can't figure this out. It's real tough. Pick your war. Vote Democrat, you win war with Russia. Vote Republican, you win war with Iran. Note that in both scenarios, you always lose, but the military-industrial complex always wins. P.S. Both of those scenarios can lead to World War III. Indeed. If you think voting in this upcoming election is going to change anything about any of these situations that we're looking at here, you're in fantasy land. And we're going to look at a British example in a minute, which is going to prove that. Now let's shift to our other global conflict, which of course is Ukraine. So we've had Zelensky visiting a bomb-making factory in the United States. And American politicians thought that it would be a great idea to go to this bomb-making factory and sign their names on the bombs. See, now, if I told you this was happening, if I came on here and just said this without showing that video, you would not think that that's real. This is just so, as the commentator here says, fundamentally wrong that it boggles the mind. Because what has this war done? Estimates on the Russian side 70,000 people dead. And that's what you want to sign your name on. More than 70,000 people fighting in Russia's military have now died in Ukraine, according to data analyzed by the BBC. And for the first time, volunteers, civilians who joined the armed forces after the start of the war, now make up the highest number of people killed on the battlefield since Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022. Every day, the names of those killed in Ukraine, their obituaries and photographs from their funerals are published across Russia in the media and on social networks. And the BBC collected this and identified 70,000 Russians that have been killed in this. And considering the fact that this war is a stalemate right now, nothing's really happening on either side, the Ukrainian invasion of Russia has been a complete failure. What do you think the approximate numbers are on the Ukrainian side? Well, they were the ones that were invaded, so I'd probably put the number up a little bit higher than that. I'd go for about 100k. And what's been achieved? Nothing! You're looking at someone who came out on day one and called out Putin for this invasion. Someone that's also been incredibly critical of the West in Iraq and Afghanistan. We cannot use militarism, offensive force, to solve political problems. How's that going for Israel? They may be about to be in a four-front conflict. Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Yemen. Let's shift to the British situation. Because we had this election in the United Kingdom over the summer, and we had this Labour majority. The left has come to power, apparently, in the United Kingdom. And what has that meant? Has it allowed for a progressive agenda to rise to the top in Britain? Has the Labour victory allowed for the country to really start turning things around and changing course in a more positive direction for the British people and Britain's role in the world? Well, not really, but I'll tell you what it does have, which I want to make sure you're sitting down for this. Make sure you're sitting down. Are you sitting down? Good. It has the most diverse government in British history. That is, without question, an amazing, earth-shattering accomplishment. In fact, so much so that this Labour Party politician could not stop talking about the level of diversity that the Labour government has. It's such a fundamental achievement. Let's just look at this, how awesome this is.
Well, we've got the most diverse parliament now that we've ever had, more women MPs than ever before, and more Labour women MPs than ever before that make up the bulk of that. We've got more black and ethnic minority MPs, more MPs from LGBT community, and more disabled MPs as well. So the House of Commons really is starting to reflect the country that we want to represent.
So why is it, just out of interest, that the most diverse government in British history decided that it would be a good idea to cut off winter fuel payments to pensioners? Why is the most diverse government in British history still continuing to send weapons to Israel which is bringing the world closer and closer to the brink of World War III. Why is the most diverse government in British history trying to get approval to have its missiles fired further and further and further into Russia? It's almost like the degree of diversity that you have does not in any way correlate with the outcomes that you're going to produce. So when anyone is selling you this diversity agenda, they are a complete fraud. Look at this. Don't look at that. What we're doing over there, which is apparently destroying the future of pensioners, one of the most vulnerable groups in society, and trying on as many fronts as humanly possible to bring the world closer and closer to World War III. These people are a joke. And do you want to know how much of a joke they are and how much people are seeing through this now? Take a look at this. Keir Starmer is now less popular than Rishi Sunak. A poll for The Observer finds a 45-point drop in the Prime Minister's approval rating since he won the election. The lies of identity politics are coming to an end. Reality is setting in, and it's not a reality that you can paint over with a brush of any color or gender identity or sexual orientation. Subscribe if you're new here. Follow, hit like, share this video everywhere you possibly can. It's time to be far more critical with geopolitics. It's time to stop taking sides and start realizing that the people in charge do not care about you on any conceivable level. They're giving you just enough chicken feed to keep you quiet. And when it doesn't keep you quiet, what do? They unleash the police and military and bring the world closer to a global conflict to distract you from the problems at home. This is the reality of our world, everyone. Time to start dealing with it. Share this video everywhere you possibly can. I'll be back with more real soon.